Hey there, and welcome to Family Revenge. We're so glad you're here. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you can stay with us for every twist and turn. Let's jump right in. I walked into the ballroom and immediately regretted it. The air smelled like perfume and money. Glasses clinked, silverware chimed, and a jazz quartet played something smooth and forgettable in the corner. Everyone was dressed like they belonged on the cover of a college alumni magazine. Sleek suits, perfect teeth, polite laughter echoing off the chandeliers. I tugged at the hem of my dress and tried not to feel like a fraud. My name's Samantha. I'm 34. I live just outside of Philly now, work remote, freelance research, and grant writing. Nothing glamorous, but I came back for this. Professor Adler's retirement gala. I told myself it was for closure. Maybe peace. Honestly, I wasn't sure. Before we start, how's your day going and where are you joining from? The last time I saw Adler, I'd just defended my dissertation and left campus in silence. No hugs, no thanks. He barely looked at me in the hallway. Meanwhile, Valerie, golden girl of the program, got invited to every dinner, every panel, every project. He used to call her his legacy. And there she was, Valerie already glowing at the front of the room like she lived there. Champagne in hand, surrounded by old faculty, that same breathy laugh I remembered from seminar, like everything was just so charming to her. She looked exactly the same, just with more expensive shoes. I stood off to the side for a bit, unsure where to go, pretending to check my phone. Nobody came over. I recognized faces, former department heads, advisors, people I used to bend over backwards for, but not one of them looked twice at me. A waiter passed with a tray of flutes. I grabbed one and made my way toward the back of the room where a few empty seats circled a small table with a floral centerpiece and a bowl of untouched olives. It was quiet there, far enough that I could blend in but still see the stage. Inside my purse was a small navy envelope, thick paper, heavy weight. Inside was a check, $10,000, a donation to the department in Adler's honor. I'd spent weeks debating it, wrote the note 5 different times, crossed out half of it. Didn't sign the card with love, just dash as I didn't want to be seen. I didn't need a spotlight. I just wanted to close a door. Then Adler walked in. Applause went up. He beamed. Gray suit, still sharp. He hugged Valerie first, kissed her cheek, laughed at something she whispered. My stomach flipped, and I don't know why I expected anything else. He barely scanned the room before taking his seat at the front. I took a sip of champagne, tasted metal, and stared straight ahead. I didn't even notice the mic being tested. Just heard the polite hush ripple through the room and looked up to see Valerie already standing center stage, one hand on the podium, the other tucked effortlessly behind her back like she was born to be there. "Good evening, everyone," she said, smiling that practiced, gentle smile. "It's such an honor to be here tonight for someone who gave me everything." The room leaned in. Phones came out. Someone near the front whispered, "That's Adler's girl," like she was royalty. Valerie talked about how she met Professor Adler as a sophomore, how his belief in her work changed her life, how he taught her not just to be a scholar, but to be bold, curious, unstoppable. It was polished, emotional, safe. She had the crowd in her hand, and she knew it. I picked at the condensation on my champagne glass. Every time she said mentor, the word stung like salt in a cut. I counted. She said it 12 times in less than 5 minutes. A man in a navy blazer leaned over to the woman beside him and whispered, "She's got such presence." The woman nodded like she was watching the damn Emmys. Valerie started listing milestones, her first publication, her postdoc in New York, her current position leading some flashy project Adler, always believed she'd be perfect for laughter, light applause, glowing eyes from every direction. My stomach tightened. I turned slightly toward the people at my table, hoping to find a way in. A short woman in pearls caught my glance, so I leaned in a bit. "She's doing well," I said quietly. "I just got a fellowship myself, doing archival recovery out of state. It's funded through—" "Oh," she said, blinking. "Are you an alum too?" I nodded. "Samantha. Class of—" "Sorry, I don't remember," she said, then turned back to watch the stage. The guy next to her must have heard. "Wait," he said. "Did you publish something with Adler?" I shook my head. "No, but I was in the same cohort as Valerie. Different focus. I just got a research grant, though. Pretty decent placement." He nodded politely, then said, Valerie's speech is amazing, right? I mean, she's kind of the face of the department. I sat back in my chair. The jazz quartet had stopped playing. All eyes stayed locked on Valerie, who was now holding back fake tears. I felt it again, that old grad school ache, that twist in the chest that came from doing everything right and still being unseen. It was like the spotlight couldn't even touch my side of the room. Valerie wrapped up by saying Adler had made her into the person she always hoped to become. Everyone clapped. Some even stood. I didn't move, just watched Adler rise and clap with both hands, proud like a father at graduation. He didn't look my way once, not even a flicker of recognition. Someone near the aisle whispered, "They always had that bond. She's practically his academic daughter." Laughter followed. I stared at the white tablecloth and blinked hard. I thought about that night I stayed up 48 hours finishing Adler's damn manuscript edits, the ones he said were vital but never credited. I thought about the time I got pneumonia and still ran his review panel while Valerie was off speaking in Paris, but none of that counted, not to them. I reached into my purse and touched the envelope. The weight of the check felt heavier than it had an hour ago. 10 grand to honor a man who couldn't even scan the crowd far enough to see me. Next up, the MC said from the mic, we'll hear a few more words from our beloved faculty before dinner is served. More applause. I stayed seated, hands in my lap, feeling the warmth drain from my face. The favorite had shined. The rest of us, we were just background. The wine had been poured. The jazz started up again, softer this time, like background music for all the fake catching up happening around the room. My table stayed mostly quiet, murmurs between bites of salmon and cold risotto. Valerie took the mic again just as dessert plates were being cleared. "I know we've all said a lot tonight," she said, flashing that same polished smile. "But before we wrap this up, I'd love to offer one final toast." A waiter paused mid-reach to refill my glass. I waved him off. My chest was tight again, and my stomach had no interest in creme brulee. Valerie raised her glass. "To the man who made us who we are," she said, voice cracking just enough to sound sincere. "To the professor who never treated this work like a job, but like a calling. You gave your heart to this place. And to me," she turned to look at Adler, who stood near the stage, hand over his chest like he'd just won an award. "You raised the most capable, only mentee you ever needed." The words slammed into me. Just like that, I was gone. Not forgotten. Erased. Laughter broke out across the room. Real, hearty laughter. Someone clapped. Another person whistled. Glasses lifted into the air like it was gospel. I didn't move. I didn't blink. My body felt frozen, like if I shifted even an inch, I'd come apart. Adler smiled, lifted his own glass. No correction, no joke, not even a sideways glance. He took a long sip, beaming like it was the proudest moment of his career. Something sharp pressed into my palm. I looked down. I'd balled my fist around the cloth napkin without realizing it. I didn't cry. I didn't stand up screaming. But something snapped. Quiet, clean, like a branch underfoot. I stood, not fast, not loud, just enough that the man beside me blinked in surprise. The woman in pearls glanced over, confused. A few heads turned, but not many. Valerie was still smiling at Adler, soaking in the applause. I stepped around the table, smoothed my dress. My purse was still hanging from the back of the chair, the navy envelope peeking out. I didn't grab it yet, just walked slowly toward it. My knees weren't shaking, but the rest of me buzzed like a live wire. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I just knew I couldn't sit there another second. That line kept ringing in my ears. Only mentee he ever needed. Over and over. Years of grinding, of invisible work, of staying quiet to be professional. For what? For this? I slipped the envelope into my hand, not hiding it, not flaunting it either, just holding it, like something final. Behind me, Valerie said, "Thank you all for making tonight so meaningful." A few more claps. Adler looked around the room like he was cataloging faces. Still didn't notice me standing. I took one breath, then another, and walked toward the front, not toward the stage. Toward the side table where two assistants were packing up extra programs and flyers. Both of them had been grad students with me. Quiet, kind, the ones who noticed when I looked worn down, who brought me tea the night I nearly passed out in the lab. They'd never had power, but they'd had decency. I didn't look at Valerie, didn't look at Adler, just kept walking. And behind me, the laughter finally died. Their heads snapped up as I got close. The two assistants at the side table, halfway through stacking leftover programs. They hadn't seen me in years, but they recognized me instantly. I could tell by the way the taller one, Matt, straightened in his seat, wide-eyed like I was walking into the wrong room. "Hey," I said quietly, holding the envelope in both hands. "Don't panic." They didn't say anything, just stared. Behind me, the crowd was still murmuring. Forks scraping plates. Jazz humming along like none of this was off script. I didn't take the mic. I didn't turn toward the stage. I just stood there at the edge of the room, voice steady. "I had something I came here to give," I said, "in honor of Professor Adler." That got attention, not all at once, just a slow hush, like the wind leaving a room. People glanced up from their tables, a few leaned toward each other, whispering. I kept going. "But clearly," I said, holding up the envelope slightly, "there's been a misunderstanding." Valerie was frozen near the podium, smiling still, or trying to, but her eyes had gone sharp. Adler didn't move, just stared like I was speaking another language. I turned back to Matt and the other assistant, Tasha. She looked more nervous than anything. I offered her the envelope. "This is for you," I said, "both of you." Tasha reached for it with shaking fingers. Matt looked like he didn't know whether to stop me or hug me. "It's a donation," I said, loud enough for people nearby to hear. 10,000. Use it however you want. For the students, for the work, for whoever actually shows up when it counts. Dead silence now. You could have heard a fork drop. I didn't look at Adler again, didn't need to. I felt the heat of his glare from across the room. I didn't explain myself, didn't list credentials, didn't ask for recognition. I'd done that part already. For years. What I gave tonight wasn't for him, it wasn't even for me. I turned and walked back to my seat. Simple as that. No applause, no questions. Just eyes tracking me like I'd walked in carrying a live grenade. The man in the navy blazer wouldn't look at me. The woman in pearls clutched her purse like I'd committed a crime. I sat down calmly and placed my hands in my lap. At the side table, Matt and Tasha opened the envelope. I saw Matt's eyes widen. He passed it to Tasha, who blinked like she thought it was a prank. Valerie stayed frozen at the front. Her expression didn't crack, but her mouth was pulled tight like she'd swallowed something sour. Adler finally sat. No words, no smile. Just stared across the room at me like I'd ruined his party. I didn't break eye contact. He looked down. That was the end of it. No one rushed to fix it, no speech to recover the moment. Just awkward silence broken by the jazz band, awkwardly picking up again, softer, slower, like they weren't sure if they should even be playing. Someone cleared their throat near the back. Silverware clinked again. I sipped my water and looked straight ahead. Whatever they thought I came here for, they were wrong. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't attention. It was clarity. And now they had it. Nobody said anything. Not really. There was the clatter of dessert forks and the lazy hum of the jazz band trying to patch over the silence. But no one came up to me. No wow or bold move or even a passive-aggressive side comment. They just kept their heads down. Like if they ignored me long enough, I'd vanish. I sat still, breathing easier than I had all night. I saw one of Adler's old colleagues, Dr. Finch, I think, make a beeline for the door, muttering something to his wife. Valerie walked back to her table with tight shoulders and a fixed smile, sipping from her champagne like it was medicine. Across the room, Tasha and Matt were still at the side table. They'd tucked the envelope away but kept looking over, like they weren't sure whether to thank me or report me to the alumni office. I didn't wave, just gave them a nod. The tension in my shoulders was finally gone. I felt light, empty in the good way, like I'd been holding my breath for 6 years and just let it go. A woman from my cohort passed by on the way to the bathroom. She gave me this weird half smile, like she was embarrassed for me. I stared back until she looked away. The gala limped forward. Closing remarks, a few photos, people shuffling out early, claiming babysitters or long drives. No one brought up the donation. No one asked what I meant. They just let it hang there, like smoke nobody wanted to acknowledge. I left without saying goodbye. By the time I got back to my car, my heels were off, my hands were cold, and my phone buzzed in my purse. It was from Tasha, just a question mark. That's all. I didn't text back. I called. She picked up immediately, breathless like she thought it might have been a mistake. "Hey," I said. "Samantha?" "Yeah." "Is it—" She stopped, voice cracking. "Is it real?" "It's real," I said. "No strings." Use it how you want. She didn't say anything at first. I heard Matt's voice in the background, asking something. Then her again. I don't understand. Why us? I leaned back in the seat and looked out at the parking lot. Full of black sedans, silent professors sliding into back seats, heels clicking on concrete. Because you saw me, I said. Back then. You didn't have to, but you did. You were always the one we rooted for, she whispered. Even when I cut her off. You showed up when it mattered. That's exactly why I did it. She went quiet again. But I could hear her breathing, those tiny, choked sounds people make when they're trying not to cry. Samantha, she said finally, I don't even have the words. You don't need any, I said. Just put it to good use. I didn't stay on the phone long after that. I didn't want a long, emotional moment. I'd said what needed to be said, nothing more. I hung up and sat there for a while with the engine off, watching people leave, watching the windows of the ballroom slowly go dark. Let them rewrite the story however they wanted. I already knew mine. By morning, it had already started. Subject lines like clarifying context, about last night, and thoughts on recent events showed up in my inbox before I even finished my first cup of coffee. I didn't open them at first. I just stared at the names. Former classmates, old advisors, people I hadn't heard from in years. The same ones who barely looked at me at the gala were suddenly very interested in what I'd done. The first was a mass email from the department. Not signed by Adler, of course. They'd trotted out the associate chair to write some polished nothing burger about recognizing all alumni contributions, while casually suggesting that some gestures might have been misinterpreted due to limited context. There was a whole paragraph about unofficial moments and individual statements that don't reflect department values. Bullshit dressed up as gratitude. I closed it and didn't reply. Then came the real messages, the ones from my cohort. A few were short, blunt. What exactly were you trying to prove? That felt unnecessary. Wow, you really couldn't let Valerie have one night? I didn't respond to those either, but mixed in were a few that caught me off guard. I wish I had your guts. You weren't the only one he overlooked. That was the first time anyone made that room uncomfortable in a good way. Still, I said nothing. I wasn't interested in applause, and I wasn't handing out explanations. Not anymore. Then Valerie posted. She didn't tag me. She didn't even use names. Just a vague update on her public profile, the one she used for all her grant work and academic brand building. It's always disappointing when former classmates try to hijack someone else's celebration. We rise above, even when others seek attention in toxic ways. The comments lit up with clapping emojis and "so proud of you" replies. One person even wrote, "People are just jealous of your impact." I sat there staring at it, completely still. Not mad, not hurt, just done. Let them spin it however they needed. That was fine, but then the department chair emailed me directly. She wasn't at the gala, hadn't been around during my years there either, but suddenly she wanted to clarify the intent behind your generous gift. She said the donation had created a bit of confusion and asked if I'd be open to a phone call to help smooth things over internally. I stared at her email for a full 10 minutes before replying. The donation stands. My loyalty does not. Samantha. That was it. One line. She never wrote back. Later that night, Matt texted me a screenshot of Valerie's post with just 3 words. "Are you okay?" I replied. "Better than ever." Then muted the thread. I knew what was coming next. Damage control, gaslighting, the usual cycle. Frame me as unstable, bitter, ungrateful. Flip the story until I looked like the problem. They had the podium, the platform, the tenure. I didn't need any of that, because they also had something else now, a mirror, and I was done performing for their reflection. It was a Tuesday, rain tapping the windows, quiet in my little co-working studio, a converted loft with secondhand desks and terrible coffee. I was editing grant proposals, earbuds in, head down. Then the door opened behind me. I didn't look up until I heard his voice. Samantha. Adler. I pulled out one earbud and turned slowly. He was standing in the doorway with Valerie right behind him, both dressed like they'd just come from a fundraiser. Blazer, scarf, the whole still relevant look. "What are you doing here?" I asked. Valerie offered a smile I didn't trust. "We just thought maybe we could talk." I stood up, crossed my arms. "You're not supposed to be here." "We didn't mean to ambush you," Adler said. "We figured given the way things were left? Left, I said. You mean after I dropped 10 grand in front of a room full of people you pretended I didn't exist in? He sighed, like I was the exhausting one. It wasn't like that. The toast was a joke. Valerie didn't mean, it wasn't a joke, I snapped. You clapped. You smiled. You raised your glass. Valerie stepped forward, palms open. We've always appreciated you, Sam. You're incredibly smart. You just kept such a low profile. No, I said. I kept my head down. There's a difference. You had a stage, a microphone, decades, and you didn't say a damn thing. Adler's jaw tightened. We're trying to have a productive conversation here. I walked to my desk, grabbed a folder, and tossed it onto the pile. Then talked to each other. I'm not interested, Valerie glanced around the space, clearly uncomfortable. Look, this whole thing has gotten louder than we expected, and there's still time to correct it. If you want to redirect the donation through the department, I laughed. There it is. What? She asked, playing innocent. You want control of the money, of the narrative. Too late, Adler's voice dropped lower. You understand, of course, how this might reflect. Reflect on who? I cut in. Me? Or the man who watched a former student humiliate herself out of desperation to be acknowledged? His face twisted like I'd slapped him. I stepped closer. The money already went to the people who showed up when it mattered. You two didn't. That's the whole story, Valerie glanced at Adler, clearly done pretending. Fine, she said. Then I guess this was a waste of time. No, I said, opening my laptop again. It was a reminder. Adler lingered. You were never invisible to me, Samantha? I didn't even look at him. Funny how that only became true once I had something you wanted. They left in silence. Door clicked shut behind them. I put my earbuds back in, kept working. The screenshot started circulating 2 days later. Group chat messages from years ago. Old, half-ranting stuff I barely remembered typing. Out-of-context lines about how the assistants meant well but didn't get it, or how they were just playing it safe to stay in Adler's good graces. And of course, Valerie had only shared the worst ones. No context, no dates. Just my name, my words, and her caption. People show you who they really are when they think no one's watching. The timing wasn't subtle. I stared at the screen for a while, then called Matt. He didn't pick up. I texted him and Tasha both. Just one line. Can I come by? Tasha replied 10 minutes later. Yeah. I stopped by a local bakery and picked up a box of assorted pastries, their favorite place from grad school. Didn't bother dressing up, just jeans, a hoodie, and a bag of nerves. Their apartment was quiet when I knocked. Tasha opened the door, nodded once, and let me in. Matt was on the couch, scrolling his phone. He looked up at me, didn't smile. I held up the pastry box. Peace offering. He nodded slowly. You could have just said it. I should have, I said, setting the box down on the coffee table, and I will now. I sat. No small talk. Just straight into it. Those messages were real. I said that stuff, and I'm sorry they didn't interrupt. I was burned out. Angry. Bitter. I felt invisible, and I took it out on the people who were actually kind to me. That's the truth. Not an excuse. Just the truth. Tasha sat on the arm of the couch. It hurt, she said quietly. Reading it. I know, I said. And it hurt even more knowing you'd see it like that. Used like ammo. That wasn't supposed to come back. But I own it, Matt finally leaned forward. We weren't perfect either. We could have said more. We saw what was happening. We just didn't know what to do. I nodded. You did enough. You showed up. You listened. That donation? It wasn't a favor. It was recognition. And I meant every word I said when I handed it to you. For a moment, none of us said anything. Just sat in the quiet. Then Tasha opened the pastry box and pulled out a lemon cruller. Okay, she said, but this better be from that place on Pine. I let out a breath and smiled. It is. We ate around the coffee table, paper napkins, soft music playing from the kitchen. No drama, no lectures. Just 3 people who'd survived the same fire, finally sitting in the ashes together. Matt bit into a chocolate croissant. You know Valerie's gonna keep pushing, right? Let her, I said. I'm not in the room anymore, Tasha chuckled. You kinda kicked the door down on the way out. I raised my coffee. Felt good. We laughed, gentle and tired and real. This was what support actually looked like. A few days later, I wrote the letter. Simple. 2 paragraphs. No emotion, no grandstanding, just the facts. I sent it to Adler, to the department chair, and CC'd the admin office so no one could claim they didn't know. This message serves as my final communication with the department. Please do not contact me further. Do not ask others to speak on your behalf. I've made my position clear. I won't be pulled into future events, messages, or discussions. My contribution was real. My exit is permanent. Samantha Owens. That was it. The next day, I got one voicemail. Blocked number. I recognized his voice before he even said my name. Samantha, I saw your email. Look, I wish we had talked before all this. I just don't understand where this is coming from. You always struck me as more measured than this. I never meant to make you feel forgotten, but this wasn't fair to anyone. Not me, not Valerie, not the department. It was cruel. I hope one day you see that. Then silence, then a quiet. Still, I do wish you well. Click. I sat with the phone in my lap. Didn't delete it. Didn't save it either. Just let it sit there like dead weight. I didn't reply. That winter, I spent the first weekend of December in a 2-bedroom apartment in West Philly, drinking spiked hot chocolate with Matt, Tasha, and a few of their friends from graduate school, people who'd walked away from the same place, some angry, some just tired. We did a small gift exchange, candles, socks, a funny mug with an inside joke I wasn't even part of. But they included me anyway. Tasha made vegetarian chili. Matt played old music from the shared playlist we used to have during late-night study sessions. Nobody asked about Valerie, or Adler, or the fallout. We sat around the coffee table, no big speeches, no forced holiday cheer, just warmth. People passing bowls of popcorn, arguing over which movie to watch next, talking about nothing and everything. At one point, Tasha leaned her head on my shoulder and said, "You look different." "How?" "Lighter." I didn't say anything, just smiled and passed her the remote. I wasn't healed. This wasn't some big turning point with a bow on top, but for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was shrinking to fit someone else's version of me. They didn't need me to perform, or prove anything, or give more than I had. And that felt like the most seen I'd ever been. Tasha was right. I did feel lighter. The department never reached out again, never returned the money either. I checked once, just to be sure. The gift was accepted, processed, and quietly left untouched on their official records. They stopped saying my name. I became a blank space again. Fine by me. Valerie went on doing what she does best, giving keynotes, dropping inspirational quotes on social media, always in front of a microphone, always someone's success story. I didn't follow her, but people still sent me her posts sometimes. I stopped opening them. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry. Just out. And out was better than inside pretending I didn't know how much it hurt. Sometimes I'd think about that moment at the gala, the envelope, the silence, all those eyes on me. I'd ask myself, was that too much? Maybe I could have done it differently, quieter, more professional, sent the check in the mail, skipped the party, spared everyone the discomfort. Maybe. But then I remember the way they looked right past me, the way Adler smiled like that line. Only mentee he ever needed was truth. The way nobody stood up until I did. And I realized, no, that moment wasn't for them. It was for me. To finally say, I saw what you did, and I saw what you didn't. So let me ask you, if it had been you sitting at that table after all those years, would you have stayed quiet? Tell me in the comments. When was the moment you knew it was time to walk away from a place that never really saw you? And if you're in that place right now, maybe this is your sign. Final question plus, comment request plus CTA, required ending block. When did you realize it was time to stop proving yourself to the wrong people? Drop your story in the comments. And if this hit home, don't forget to like and subscribe.